I'm David Holly. I'm 54 years old. Today's date is September 19th, 2007. We are in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and I will be interviewing my mother-in-law, Helen Beach.
And I'm Helen Beach, and I'm 82 years old. Today is September the 19th, 2007, at Las Cruces, and I am Dave's mother-in-law.
How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about growing up in southwestern New Mexico. But before we actually get to the growing up stage, let's talk about where you are today and about your family, because it's quite extensive.
Yes, it is. We have, I don't know, I lost count. I have 8 grandchildren. I remember that. I have 4 children, but I don't remember how many great-grandchildren because they keep a-coming.
You just had one.
And had a brand new baby girl, great-granddaughter, of all names, Scarlett.
And where is she?
In Dallas.
Down in Dallas.
And then we have a great-great-grandson, Austin Garrett or Garrett Austin. I can't remember now how they have that together there. He was born in Tennessee.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
You forgot about Justin.
That he was coming along.
Yeah.
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
okay. We already know that I'm your son-in-law, so we know you've got one daughter. What about the others?
Okay, Colleen, she's married to Dave Holly, of course. And then there's Betty Lee. She lives in San Jose. She's a realtor out there. And she's married to David Chasen. And Bill is our oldest son, and he's just drawn his first Social Security check. So that tells you how old he is. And he's married to Wanda, and they live in Deming, and he has officially retired the 1st of October. So he's really happy. And Johnny is our youngest. He lives in Deming, and right now he's reconstructing, whatever you want to call it, the Savoy truck stop out west of Deming.
And Bill and Johnny, they owned a business there for a while.
They did. They've been in business together for 20 years. Bill's was called Push and Pedal. Anything you push and anything you pedal, well, he would work on it, fix it. And Johnny had the Beach auto shop, mechanic.
Now, I know that there was, being in southwestern New Mexico, there had to have been a cowboy somewhere in your life.
That was my husband.
Still is.
Was
I
and
believe.
is. Well, he was a cowboy. What I'm trying to say, he was a cowboy. No, he is still my husband. If we make it to November, we will be married 64 years.
Yahoo!
Okay,
Now let's back up. Let's back up now, and let's talk about how you got here with that family that you have. I've never really quite been sure of what the town was where you were born, or even if it was a town, or if when you're talking about it, is it just a location?
No, Cliff, New Mexico. It's just a village, little farming village on the Gila River. North of Silver City, about 30 miles. And that's where I was born, in an adobe house. I was my mother's last child. I was the 11th child. And I almost killed my mother. I think it was just providential that my dad was able to find a doctor in Silver City at the time, because the only doctor in Silver City, Dr. Watts, was gone that day when my dad borrowed someone's car and drove to Silver City. And it wasn't a nice paved road like there is today. It was just an old, rough graded, maybe it was graded, I don't know, may not even been graded. And I don't know, the word got around in town somehow. And there was a doctor and his wife who was a nurse who were just going through Silver City. I say providentially. And they, I get emotional over this, I'm sorry. They went home with my dad to Cliff and were able to deliver me. But he said Mama could never have delivered me without help.
Now, were your other brothers and sisters, you said you were the 11th, were your other brothers and sisters, were they all born at home?
Mm-hmm.
Were they born midwife, or were they born, did your mother take care of them?
All of them. All of them were midwife. And my mother was a midwife. Now, we're talking about a long time ago.
Yeah. Now, and let's kind of put that in perspective, and let's talk about the time period with you. What year were you born?
25.
You were born in 1925. So, and a perspective on that, then, I believe that New Mexico had only been a state for 13 years.
A very short while. A very short while.
What was the big economic draw in that part of the state back at that time? Was it the mines? Was it the ranching?
Everything at that time. In 25, it was still good. My dad was he had a goat ranch. He had a lot of Angora goats, beautiful Angora goats, and as did my uncle. They both had come from Texas and brought goats, and they would share those twice a year. Beautiful Angora mohair, it was. I remember it as a child, the smells and everything at sharing time. But the economy was good then, rather good. Not for us especially, because we were still just my folks were struggling to just kind of get started in New Mexico. They had come out from Texas in a covered wagon. It took them 6 weeks to come from Leakey, Texas, to Playas Valley, and where they homesteaded for a year, and then they came to the Cliff Country, where they filed a homestead on Sycamore, at Sycamore Canyon. And that's where, and then for the school time, my mother had gotten a little place on Lobo Canyon at Cliff. And so she could send the older kids to school, during school. And so that's where we were anyway when I was born.
During the time then when you were a child, did your family ranch the goats that whole time?
Up until 29. And that's when the Depression really hit, And at the same time, though, my dad, of course, being an outdoor man, he had developed a cancer on his nose, and it was getting worse and worse, and he was not able to find help. So he had sold his goats, and I don't know, things just fell apart all at once, his health, and he lost, I don't remember if he lost the goats or he lost the ranch or what it was, but he sold enough that we had enough money that we went to Texas, I remember, and he went to Temple. It was one of the best medical hospitals, I suppose, in the country. And he went to Temple hoping for help for the cancer. Well, it didn't help him. It just took an awful lot of the money. And from then on until he died, they spent every dime that they had. trying to get help for my dad.
Now, did all of you leave Cliff at that time when he went down to Temple?
We all left, but we came back.
Okay.
We came back, and then it was just a tough time until until he died in 1932. And then in 1935, my mother remarried, and we moved to Red Rock, which was just a little farming village further down on the Gila River.
So you were 7 years old when your dad died.
I was 7 years old. Mm-hmm.
Think back if you can, because one of the things that I've found in my life is that when I think about how bad things were, I also think about, well, they weren't that bad, because there's always some little thing that sticks out. And you have a real good ability to recall the good things. What's the first toy you remember having as a little girl?
When I was 5 years old, it was at Christmas time. And, of course, this was 1930. And they'd lost everything. And I really wasn't expecting anything. Well, I was too, I guess, being 5 years old. But I remember, and I knew I heard Santa Claus coming. I just knew it. I heard the bells and everything, you know.
Did it snow?
Oh, no, not in New Mexico. But, yes, I had, it was a little gray kitten made out of wood, I guess it was, that rocked. And a little doll was sitting on that little rocking kitty.
Do you know what happened to it?
I have no idea.
I still remember a toy I had one time, and I still look for it today whenever I go to my
You're
mom.
still looking for it?
Yeah.
No, I have no idea what happened to it.
Okay, I wanna jump ahead now, because let's jump ahead to when you're a little bit older. Your mom had remarried. You had moved down to Red Rock. Now, Red Rock was where in relation to Cliff?
Actually, as the crow flies, it probably wasn't 10 miles down the river from Cliff, maybe 10 miles or so. But, of course, you couldn't go that way. We had to go around the road. It'd take a good hour or so because the roads were rough.
And now, is that north or south?
No, it would be more south. Yeah, more south from Cliff. The river goes on, then it goes through Safford, and Duncan into Arizona. And anyway, that's where we moved. Now, and I was 10 years old at that time.
Now, when your mom remarried, did the man that she married then, your stepfather, did he have any children?
Yes, he had lots of kids. He had 9 daughters and 1 son. Uh-huh.
And were they?
No, they were.
I was going to say, did you all live in?
No,
in the same house?
They were all gone. They were all gone except the boy. He was excuse me. He was 18 at the time that Mama married Walter. We called him Walter. And then there were still at home. There were 2 girls at home. There was one who was kind of home and kind of not home. She was going to high school, and she was earning her way through high school by working in Lordsburg. We had to ride the bus 30 miles to Lordsburg from Red Rock for high school. And so she would stay in town during the week and work for a lady, and so she could go to high school. That was Tootsie. I loved Tootsie. She was my favorite of that whole clan.
Now, did you also go on to high school?
I did, from Red Rock. I went 1 year to high school at Red Rock. To Lordsburg. And then the next year, when school started, my stepfather had said, I'm not sending another kid to school. And so I started to school my sophomore year. And first day or two, after you sign up, well, the biology teacher said I had to have a book, and it was going to cost, several dollars. And I thought, well, there goes my school.
So it wasn't, back then, it wasn't a public school system as such.
It was a public school system.
But you still paid
but
your
we
own
still
way.
had to buy our books and everything like that. I think they still do, don't they? Don't they still have to buy their books? I don't know.
Well, I remember when I was in public schools, I remember that our books were provided where I came from.
Oh, is
but
that right?
I think now that there is an issue with books.
Well, I know if I'd have had that biology book, I'd have gone on to school. I think. Well, I don't know.
So you were a sophomore, but that was as far as you went then?
As far as I went at that time.
Okay.
At that time.
And then you went back then?
Then I went to work thinking, 15-year-old thinking, I could go to work and I could save enough money that I could get my books and clothes and whatever, that I could go on to school. Well, I forgot to take in the fact that I had to pay for a place to stay and had to buy my uniforms. I was waiting tables there in Lordsburg. Had to buy my uniforms and have them laundered. And, of course, I got my food at the cafe. So there just was nothing ever left for me to put aside so I could go back to school. Then the following year, I was 16, my older sister came and asked me if I would like to go and live with her and go to school.
Okay, I don't want you to be 16 yet because I know where this is going to go. I want to back. I want you to tell. There's one story that I found.
Okay.
It was kind of amusing to me.
Okay.
And for you too, because when I met you, and really up until just a couple of weeks ago, I really didn't think you had any vices.
Well, I did have vices.
Well, yes, you did.
I smoked.
And the first one I remember hearing about was your experimentation with tobacco
and snuff and you name it. No, I never did chew tobacco.
Well, let's talk about now. How old were you when you decided to experiment, and talk a little bit about your stepsister's influence on that?
Oh well, I was 10. I was 10 then. And my stepsisters would, of course, they were all older than I were, and they would get me to go and sneak out of their daddy's tobacco. He smoked Prince Albert tobacco. And they would get me to go and sneak some tobacco out of his red Prince Albert can, so they could roll a cigarette. And yeah, I was a little sneak, wasn't I?
Now, how did you get to the point though where they would include you in that?
They didn't really.
I
no.
thought that there was that you caught one of them or.
Well, yeah, I thought. Well, if I, do something for them, well, maybe they'll kind of be a little more friendly to me. The youngest ones were 15, see. My sister was 15 and my stepsister was 15. And that was a 5-year difference there in our ages. And I was just left out all the time because of the older sisters. So they'd try to get me to do something like that. Well, I would do it, thinking, oh boy, that's going to get me in with them. Well, I didn't. It just got me in trouble.
Let's talk a little bit then about when you met Bill.
I was 10
years
years old. I was 10 years old.
Now, he wasn't a cowboy at that time.
Well, not really. He was still in school. He was just a kid. He was 15. And my sister, Ola Mae, had gone to Red Rock. This is before Mama married the fellow from Red Rock. And she went to Red Rock. When she came back, she had all these pictures of these fellows, and I picked Bill's picture out of all of them. He said, well, I like him. I like his looks. So after my mother married Walter and we moved to Red Rock, we were at a box supper. Did you ever go to a box supper?
No, I never did.
Oh, that was lots of fun. All the ladies would make a real pretty box and decorate it with crepe paper and ribbons and whatever they could find to make it fancy. Then they would pack a lunch in it and take it to the box supper. And that's how they raised funds to either pay for the musicians who came, or to maybe to help with a school or something. And that was going to be a box supper at Red Rock. And that's the first time I saw Billy Beach, we called him then. Everybody called him Billy. And I told everybody, I said, I'm going to marry him.
And you were 10 years old?
I was 10, yeah. And that same night, at Red Rock, there was 2 buildings for our school. One was 1st through the 4th, I think it was, and the other was 5th through the 8th. I believe that's what it was. And they were separate little buildings, very rough, not painted, no linoleum, no anything, no electricity, had a pot-bellied stove in it. And they had piled all the desks from one room, one of those buildings, into the other one. So we had gotten there at the box supper early that night because my brother was playing, helping to make the music that night. He played the saxophone, and in a band called the Four Wonders. The Four Wonders, boy. They made really good music, though. And so we had to get to the location early, and I went into the other building where all the desks were. And I found Billy Beach's desk, and I knew it was his desk because he had carved BB on the desk. And I knew that was it.
Now, was he living in, his family was living in Red Rock
Yes.
at that time? And his dad was a cowboy, though, right?
He had been.
Okay.
He had been, but he had died at very close to the time my dad had died. Very similar backgrounds. His mother was a widow woman, just like my mother, and he died, I think, in 31, and then Papa died in 32.
Now, Bill was 15? Okay.
About 15.
Okay, Bill being 15, you being 10, and in today's world, I mean, you didn't have a Sonic drive-in to go to. There wasn't a car to go riding around in. What was dating like then, or was there even any dating at 10 years old and 15?
No, of course not. He didn't even know I existed until I was about 13, and I started showing, well, I was going to be a lady, and we started dating when I was about 14, I guess.
Okay, now this is, I think, where your life really picked up and started moving fast, because at that time then he would have been 18, 19, and it's important, I think, to know what happened during that time, and you may move ahead a few years from there then, because as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and move ahead, and let's go to 1941, when the war started, and talk a little bit there, because I know not only did your relationship change, but also your ideas about life and your decisions as to what you were going to do.
Mm-hmm. In 1940, we had a big falling out in January of that year, I think. But on July the 3rd and 4th of 1941, 1941, actually. 1941 it was. Um, we got back together. And there was a rodeo at Silver City, and they had roped off about a block of the street, and they were having a dance down there. And Bill and I won the waltz contest. But I was going to school at Cliff, where my sister was, had asked me to come and live with her. And it was there when we heard about Pearl Harbor, of course. And Bill, by that time, he had been cowboying at the Flying A Ranch.
And now, is that over by Lordsburg?
No,
or is that
well,
still up by Red Rock?
it's between Silver City and Lordsburg. And but at that time, during Pearl Harbor, he was working for the mines, the Peru mine over near Santa Rita and in there. When after Pearl Harbor, of course, immediately after Pearl Harbor, he said he was going to sign up, but he'd wait until January. And in December, actually 41, he would be 21. So he enlisted in January and was sent to his first assignment with Wichita Falls, Texas, Shepherd Field, for his basic training. And I decided there was really nothing left for me because I couldn't go on to school, and I had always wanted to sing over the radio. And there was no radio stations around our country. My brother lived in Tucson, my brother and his wife and family. So shortly after the first of the year, I'm not sure what month it was now, Mama got me a ticket on the train, and I went to Tucson and lived with Henry and Evelyn, my brother and his wife and family. And it was while I was there that let's see. Well, I went into the KVOA radio station and told the girl I wanted to see the manager. And she said, what is your name and what is your business? And I said, I'm Helen Kroom, and I want to sing over the radio. I thought it was simple. So she went in and told Mr. Williams that he had me come in, and I could tell he was real amused at this. This brash kid from the country wanted to come sing over his radio. And he said, well, what kind of music do you do? I said, I pick the guitar and sing, and I yodel like Patsy Montana. And he said, well, I've only got one place that I could use you, and that's with Larry's Sunset Riders. Said they have a radio program on Friday nights from the Pioneer Hotel. And it's called KVOA Barn Dance. And they broadcast from there. And they have square dancing, and everything there at the barn dance. So he said, come back Thursday night and rehearse, and we'll see what the band thinks. Well, of course, I was back Thursday night, and they loved me. So Friday night, well, I was on my first radio program.
Do you remember what the first song you sang was?
I want to be a cowboy sweetheart.
Could you sing a line from it?
A line?
Or two?
Or two.
Sing on the radio.
I want to be a cowboy sweetheart. I want to learn to rope and ride. I want to ride o'er the plains and deserts out west of the Great Divide. You want me to yodel?
Pretty good.
Oodle-oo-dee-ay-dee, oodle-ay-o, oodle-ay-oodle-ay, oodle-ay, oodle-ay.
All right, there you go. You still have it. Maybe we need to see if we can get you a job singing over the radio. Now, okay, you're in Tucson. There's actually, and we're going to get to something else in Tucson because there's two more songs that you have to sing, and you know one of them that I'm going to ask you about, and then the other one, I think the family wants to hear you sing it again. Okay, you're in Tucson. The first thing that I ever heard you talk about in Tucson, being a young woman, and you know what it is, absolutely fascinated me, and I'm still fascinated whenever I hear it today. And that was your job over there.
Well, Larry, who was the leader of the Sunset Riders, he was the band leader. He worked for the Tucson Gas, Electric, Light, and Power Company, as did Kenny, who was the pianist. He worked there, too. And there were several that worked at the Tucson Gas, Electric, Light, and Power Company. Now, that was a big outfit then because they also owned the Tucson Transit Company, the bus line throughout the city bus line, and it was a good one. So Larry asked me if I would like to go to work down there, and I said, sure, what would I be doing? Because I had not finished school, and I didn't know what I could do. He said, all you have to do is walk. I said, well, I can do that. And during the Depression, a married man with a family had come in and proposed to the Gas and Electric Company that he deliver the bills, and he showed him where he could deliver much less, costing them much less than mailing them. So they gave him the job, and since that time, they had been delivered, just door to door. So the young man that was doing that had gone off to get into big money, with a shipbuilding industry at that time. And so that was what I was going to be doing, delivering bills, and I did. And Tucson, 25,000 people at the time.
But how did you deliver them? That's what was
I walked. I would take the bus to a certain area of town, and then I would deliver my bills in that area. I got a frog in my throat. And then the next day I would go to another section of town and deliver the bills there. And I covered the entire town, except there were very far outlying areas that they were just too scattered. Now, some of them I would take my bicycle, and I'd ride my bicycle out and deliver bills.
That's the part that always fascinated me, was delivering those bills on a bicycle.
Well, I'd have to park my bicycle and go and deliver my bill, and then, put it in the door. I didn't knock on the door. That would take too much time. Just slipped it through the door.
During the war, you're there. Marana Airfield was there. They were training crews there at the time. The band that you were with started playing out there. At that time, they played, was it USO shows or?
No, it was just, they invited different ones out to just entertain the soldiers, And also we were doing war bond rallies, but the time we went out to Marana Air Base, it was just to give the boys some entertainment, I guess.
Now, to give people a perspective of Tucson at that time, how far was Marana Air Base from Tucson?
It was out of town. It was way out of town.
Whereas now they're all incorporated into one city. Now, when you went out there, you used to talk about the fact that they always wanted you to sing one song.
I hated that song with a passion, and I did not like singing it.
What was it?
Lay that pistol down, babe. It had just come out. That had just come out, and oh boy, they all loved it. But there was a lot of good songs that came out about that time.
Well, how about sing a little bit of them?
Lay that pistol down, babe, lay that pistol down. Pistol packing mama, lay that pistol down.
I won't make you go any further with that. Yeah, I know you've told
like
me
to
before that
sing
you
that
hated
song.
that song. Let's move ahead. I don't want us to run out of time before you get back to New Mexico. Bill's off. He's still training in the States. And we have to move forward to after the war then. After the war, where did you meet Bill when he came back to the States?
Well, actually, he came back before the war was over. He was sent to England. He was some of the first, one of the, what was that? He was among the very first to go overseas in the Air Force with the 305th Curtis LeMay's group. And it was hard times at that time. So he got back early. He got back in 43. The war was still going strong.
Now, did he get out at that time?
Oh, no. And we got married when he came back. We got married in November of 43. And then he was sent to Dyersburg, Tennessee. And we were there until, to the Dyersburg, Tennessee Air Base. And we were there until June of 45 when the Germans surrendered. And I was pregnant with my first child. So the air base knew they were wasn't going to be long till the war was over. So they were sending all the pregnant wives home that could make it home for the birth of the baby. So I came on home, and then he did not get out until October of 43. And he went to his first job, he went to work for the Southern Pacific Railroad.
Now you're back in New Mexico now.
Back in New Mexico. He went to work for the Southern Pacific Railroad at 50 cents an hour, graveyard shift, 11 to 7 in the morning, shoveling sand. How's that? Now, that's a fine way to treat a returned hero, isn't it? Well, we saw real quick we couldn't live on that, $4 a day. Even then, we couldn't. So he said, I'm going back to the ranch. So that's when he went to work for the JSC Bar Ranch, 12 miles east of Lordsburg.
And there's one more song that you sing, and I know that Colleen loves that song.
What one was that?
And that's Bring My Cowboy.
Oh, he came back to me?
Yeah.
Do you have time for that one?
Go ahead.
He came back to me from over the sea, where he fought for the red, white and blue. Now that victory is won, I know I'm the lucky one. He came back to me just like he used to be. He helped win the battle of World War II. He came back a hero, but he's still the guy I knew, riding ponies, branding steers, as he did in pre-war years. He came back to me just like he used to be.
You ready to go
the rest of it?
Ready to go get some dinner?
Huh?
Ready to go get some dinner?
Yeah.
I know we could go on and on and on. I
yeah.
love hearing these stories.
Oh, yeah. I got hundreds of them.
Let's go eat.
All right.